Good morning. Good morning. All right, thank you all for being here. And so we're starting back with these briefings, an opportunity for me to come before you all collectively and just have you all ask me questions that are relevant to what's happening in the city. So with that.
Council is supposed to tomorrow take up funding the sanitation contracts to the end of the year. What happens if they don't provide the full amount needed for the rest of the year?
So one of the things that you know very well is the issues that we have been having relative to sanitation, collections, consistency, and the like. Clearly, the community, the outcry from the community. It's been over a year in the making in terms of finally getting to a point where we have regular collections. We have onboarded, as you know, Waste Pro, Ivy Waste. They started November 7th. The residents have been able to see the quality of the service, the consistency there, and it is our hope that that continues. If the funding is not there, you know what happens, right? It means that the city council would be making a decision that would ultimately impact residents of the zone that now are seeing adequate, timely, and consistent collections. And that is exactly what they deserve. That's exactly what my administration promised. And we went to work to deliver results. And so with that, it's on the city council side relative to whether they will fund what is needed to keep these contracts moving. Well, if the contractors, if the money isn't there, then the contractors will not be paid. And so, again, the decision right now is that on the New Orleans City Council side, the work on the administrative side has been done, and we have rendered results. And the community, the residents are happy. So I want to keep them there. Solution has been provided, and that is what we're seeing, and we want to stay that way.
WGNO and WDSU.
Mayor Cantrell, as a result of an investigative report, the allegations out there are that you're misusing the city's apartment by spending too much time there with the city employee, and that it's an abuse of your authority. What would you say to that, and are you worried about the Inspector General's investigation into the city's apartment?
Right, so what I will say to that is that, one, it has been thoroughly vetted relative to the law department, and even with the French Market Corporation, the use of the Pentable that is provided to the mayor of the city, it is consistent from years past. This has been on the books since the 1800s, and again, my use is consistent with that of mayors of the past.
And the Inspector General's investigation, is that a concern for your office?
No, I welcome, any investigations that are necessary to ensure that, one, I'm always above board and absolutely doing the city's work.
WDSU and then WWNO.
Mayor Cantrell, NOPD has confirmed that the Public Integrity Bureau is looking into Officer Baffey. I'm just curious, do you think that they are going to be able to do an open and unbiased investigation, given that you appoint the chief of police here in New Orleans and in effect are the boss of all New Orleans police?
Sure. So, I have complete confidence in our Public Integrity Bureau. We have ensured that policies and procedures are in place for all investigative practices that are under their authority. And so I don't see this as any different. So my full confidence, and I stand by the PIB's investigation.
Do you think that it would be better just to have maybe an outside agency come in just to avoid any thought that this might not be done up for?
Well, I think that the PIB is definitely in a position, meaning of a credible organization or agency, right, or department within the New Orleans Police Department. It was one that was had a very focus relative to the consent decree. And so given all of the reforms that the New Orleans Police Department has embraced, and now being leaders in the country in terms of constitutional policing practices, I have full confidence in PIB.
WWNO
I have a question about short-term rentals.
Yes.
So of course, the city council and the city planning commission are, going back to the drawing board yet again, with
Yeah.
new rules. I'm wondering if you have any comment on any, hopes or visions that your administration has for what these new STR laws could look like.
Sure. So, short-term rental. So I was on the New Orleans City Council when we passed the ordinance, the initial. I think that having a review is timely. I think that it is necessary, a review, based on the ordinance that was put in place and how the city has lived with it. Meaning in some areas that were expected to be maybe impacted negatively by short-term rental, it's actually been proven, and we see more dormant, like the French Quarter, for example. We have too many vacant buildings, quite frankly, in the French Quarter. So I think with the review, kind of going back and seeing if there are any changes in policy that could spur those parcels or properties in the French Quarter back into commerce. Because when they're not in use, they're dark, they're dormant, and it sends the wrong message, that we are back, as a city. But what I do look forward to is having a balanced approach to short-term rental. I'm really concerned, quite frankly, about the property owners that have invested heavily into their properties, into that market. It is an economic driver for this community, for this city as well. I think everything in balance, and I think that we can get there. I hope that we can get there sooner rather than later, because it is having an impact on the ground, both to those owners of properties that have made that investment and the loss of revenue, and also to the city of New Orleans. Again, that is a revenue driver, but we need balance, and I'm looking forward to the public discussion that the city council and the city planning commission will have.
Sure. Do you have any comment on the timeline the council has promised to work on, having new laws online by March?
Well, I think sooner rather than later. It's the residents, it's the property owners that are greatly impacted. It does have an impact also on our visitors. This is something that we've lived with for some time now. And we have a great fabric, in my opinion, relative to it. We struck a great balance. And so it's just an opportunity to go back and revisit, and hopefully we see more properties, one, coming back online, but really it's to the owners as well as to the city, revenue on both ends of it.
WWL and Fox.
Mayor Cantrell, I wanted to ask you about school zones. There was a student hit by a car this morning while crossing Magazine Street heading to school. Of course, there's crosswalks and school zone cameras, but historically we've always seen complaints from some drivers that some of them are outdated or not working properly. So I know we don't know exactly the circumstances with this situation, but is there anything that you think needs to be done? Do you think that what's in place now is adequate to keep students safe, or do you think there should be more?
Well, what I will say is that definitely unfortunate for our young person this morning. We never want that to happen, especially as a parent. Taking on safe routes to schools was something that I did as a city council person and has lifted that work up as mayor. We now absolutely have a partnership with the Orleans Parish Schools relative to safe routes. We have an office within DPW, again, focusing on safe routes to schools. You mentioned we are investigating what happened this morning, so I can't speak specifically to that, but I will once I get the data based on the review. I think that you can always do better and strive to be better. So as it relates to safe routes, crossing guards, crossing lanes, school zones, it's just another opportunity to take that look over and see how we can improve. But the commitment is there. But it's working in partnership with the school system as well, our charter management organizations. And then, we've worked to keep school zones and flashing, lights within school zones operating. Where we have maybe done away with red light cameras in some areas, the school zones were our top priority. So again, we'll revisit and we'll improve where we need to. But I think the investments are there, meaning by the administration and also in partnership with the New Orleans Public Schools.
Fox 8.
Mayor Cantrell, you say you're working 24/7, and the records show that you spend a lot of the workday at the Upper Pintaba apartment with an NOPD officer. The city has crime and infrastructure issues. You've spent nearly 20% of the year out of town or out of the country. Many of those trips with an NOPD officer. Is any of that appropriate?
So, Mr. Zurich, thank you for being here. It kind of freaks me out to see you, quite frankly, because you've been very inappropriate, in my opinion. But relative to your accusations, none of them add up at all. But in regards to my work for the city of New Orleans, it's really unmatched. I can point to results on the ground. The budget hearings that are underway right now speak to the work that my administration and my team has done and continues to do for the city of New Orleans relative to public safety, relative to housing, relative to infrastructure, and I can literally go on and on and on. But what you will not challenge me on are the results of my administration and the priorities that we've set for this city, which, in fact, the city of New Orleans has been recently included top 10 cities, fastest growing cities in the United States of America because we're doing the work. And more importantly, based on the budget that is happening right now, it demonstrates the priorities of my administration and the priorities even touted in the article in terms of where we need to continue to focus so that we become better and stronger than this city has ever been before. We're on a great trajectory, and the best is yet to come. Thank you so much.
So again, Ms. Mayor.
Thank you very
I
much.
thought I get a follow-up.
No, thank you.
Why don't everybody else gets a follow-up? Why don't I get a follow-up question?
Sir, you're the one who touts having over 680 hours of me, filming me, at an apartment, sir, that I have, the authority to use in my capacity as mayor of the city of New Orleans. So, sir, you've done more than any other reporter in this room that has been, in my opinion, in violation of me as a human being. So with that, sir, thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. And we know, and thank you very much.
Debbie, the issue.
Yes, I have a
Yes.
quick question. There's been recent allegations from some community groups that are saying Hano isn't following HUD regulations and rules.
Okay?
What would you say to that?
Recent allegations, first of all, I don't know what the allegations are, meaning what you're speaking to, so I can't answer specifically. What I will say, if there are any issues that residents have relative to Hano guidelines and practices, there is a board, one that is definitely in place, and leadership in terms of the Hano administration that is always accessible, always willing to work with residents to meet their needs, and clearly I'm always there as well. They can reach out to me. I am also about to replace, or in the process of replacing, the resident representative for and to the Hano board. And I think that's also another opportunity to strengthen the levels of communication between the residential community, the board, as well as the administration of Hano.
And some of those groups, the community groups, are saying, maybe we need a full audit and requesting city council to look more into Hano. Do you think that a full audit is needed to make sure the money's being used correctly?
Well, you have to understand this in regards to Hano, and when you talk about an audit, that really comes from HUD. Okay, these are federal dollars that activates and that Hano uses to meet the needs of our residents relative to affordable housing. Hano, and in regards to even dealing with HUD, we have been through not only ups and downs, but we've come through it better than this city has been before. And so where we once, if you recall, there was a receivership, in the past, Hano is now considered a model by HUD. So that is clearly an example that our agency is doing the work, and it's something that we really should be proud of doing. And so I stand by that.
And do you think that some of the housing is a little bit deplorable here in New Orleans? There's been a lot of issues with Section 8 housing. Don't you think that there still could be some more work to be done when it comes to Hano?
Sure, so you also, I think you may need to understand Section 8 and how that works. You know that is private ownership, right? And the private owner, in terms of getting those properties inspected, therefore go through a process to get the subsidy from HUD, from Hano. The recent passage of the rental registry, although scaled back, but it's still a first step. And I believe this is the first step in the right direction to building in real communication with our landlord community. When there is an issue with a property and a tenant has an issue, they have to go first to the landlord, not to Hano. So I think, again, strengthening those relationships between, one, the city, as well as that landowner, and again, that also helps with the relationship with Hano. But it really is a partnership, and that's why, again, the open lines of communication are just so essential, and that's where my focus is.
We have time for a few more. Back to them. Ours are dead.
At the sanitation contract signing ceremony, you did say that no matter what council does, these contractors would be paid, and today you're saying they won't be if council doesn't pass the funding. Can you tell me what has changed in the last couple of weeks?
So what has changed in the last couple of weeks? There was anticipation, one, that the council would move forward with approving the 2.5 million. What has also changed? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry. So what has also changed, prior to that, we had, litigation, which is still ongoing. But we have a federal judge that has now weighed in. And so it is imperative for the New Orleans City Council to act. This is clearly something that is in their lane, and they will have to own the decision that they will make relative to the contracts that we put in place and the services that our residents are receiving. This is about solving for a problem, getting the trash picked up. So clearly, that's where I'm aligned, that's where my team is aligned, having the trash picked up. That's where we settle. So that's where I am.
Councilman Morrell has suggested that that they can't be paid for the first couple of weeks that they've done because they were working without a council authorization for them to be paid. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but what is your position on Councilman Morrell's suggestion?
I don't agree with that at all.
What is the legal basis?
The legal basis is that a contract was signed and the resources that we're using to pay it is that we have. This is the additional 2.5 is needed, but it's.
But as far as paying in retrospect, you're saying that it would be legal for you?
What I'm saying is that the City of New Orleans will be paying the contractors for services that have been rendered. What I'm also saying is that the City of New Orleans, the administration, does look to the New Orleans City Council to pass the 2.5 million for the contractors to continue delivering the services that the residents of the City of New Orleans deserve, need, and desperately want. Thank you.
During Monday's budget hearing, Councilman at Large J.P. Morrell questioned the creation of the Office of Youth and Family, saying the executive order wasn't forwarded to them for ratification. Ms. Wolf had said that they were in compliance with the Home Rule Charter with that creation of that department. Did you want to add anything to what Ms. Wolf had said today?
Well, the Office of Youth and Families, the Mayor's Office of Youth and Families was created by executive order to bring some real focus and prioritization around how we serve children and families in our city. Also leveraging the resources and assets of NORD, our New Orleans Public Library, and also in partnership with our public schools and schools in general, and also creating programming to meet, again, the needs of our families. Over $40 million, the city makes sure that we push into organizations, programming, people, families, children, you name it. And so I stand by the Mayor's Office of Youth and Families. I think that there is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to move forward, even with an ordinance that could, create officially that department as the councilman has suggested. So you can do that, and we can do that, no problem.
WD is here.
I just had a question about infrastructure.
Mhm.
We heard from your CIO of infrastructure recently who said that he is very bluntly not happy with road construction projects and, the way that they're going right now. He said that you even sent a letter, I believe, to contractors
I did.
in the city.
I did.
expressing, wanting them to step up more. Can you kind of tell us about that and how you feel about the way these road projects are going?
Sure. So this isn't new. This is just another step, that we're taking to ensure that there is increased accountability across the board, putting and holding everybody accountable, even ourselves. But relative to our contractual community, there has been a need for them to do a quality job and in a timely manner. There have been some mishaps, whether that is a lack of notification, somewhat given to residents, whether that is slowing up, on the job, whether that has been breaking up several blocks at a time, that will then trigger payment, but a lack of progress on the ground. So there have been many steps that my team, my administration have taken to just strengthen the layers and levels of accountability relative to contractors doing work throughout the city. The responsible bidders ordinance is just another example of that, and just taking that next step forward. Yes, a letter from me saying to them what we will not tolerate, what the expectations are. When you're doing business with the city of New Orleans, you're not doing us a favor. It's a contract. You're getting paid to do these services and render these services and to do the work, and that is the expectation. And so just every step of the way, making sure that there are no excuses, that there are clear directives, clear expectations, and accountability. I believe very heavily in the carrot, the stick, and also making sure that there are no way that you can say you didn't know or blame the city, because oftentimes that truly is what happens, even when the contractor should be blamed for not doing X, Y, and Z. But regardless, we're taking it very seriously. We're building ourselves up internally to be more accountable, staff augmentation even, having more project managers on the ground, slowing up, getting into new contracts so that we can button up and finish what has already been started, to demonstrate to the public, one, we listen, we hear you. I've always said, the infrastructure work, unfortunately, it's not painless, but we really work to make it as painless as possible. It is a disruption, but it's necessary. And so we're factoring in all of these things, but just trying to get the work done, but in a better way that is less disruptive to the public. But there's so much work to be done.
WWNO?
So you mentioned the rental registry getting scaled back. I'm wondering if you have any more comment on the Healthy Homes Ordinance and how it changed in particular, because I believe you co-authored a similar ordinance.
I did. So, but it's like you have to, sometimes you just have to get in the door, like open it up. And that's how I'm looking at the ordinance that was passed. I did stand up the ordinance when I was on the city council. I took on a lot of aggressive, progressive legislation. Some you get done, some you don't. And so while I wasn't able to get it done at that point, seeing it passed by the New Orleans City Council, even scaled back, is something that I'm proud of. It's a step in the right direction. The door is open, and then it just gets us to the point where we have really good information and data for property owners. Because all we want is better communication, know who to contact if there's an issue, and hold everyone accountable, including ourselves.
WWL.
Mayor Cantrell, I wanted to ask you just a very broad question. You're now about a year into your second term. What do you believe, as the mayor, is the biggest issue that we're facing as a city, and what are your biggest goals that you're hoping to accomplish before the end of your term?
Sure. So without a doubt, definitely on a year of the first or second term, time moves. I'm hoping for a more united relationship, really, with all branches of government, definitely that of the New Orleans City Council, but unified around public safety. I think that is the top priority, because with that, it drives really everything else. Of course, public health, I could say public safety is an issue, a matter of public health as well. My plan is working. We're moving in the right direction relative to public safety. And so just wanting to make sure that we end this year and move into the new year, just continuing to move in the right direction. And with us seeing, crime going down, from violent crime to, carjackings down, more guns off the street. We've had a record number of guns taken off the street, over 2,000. October was a record month. Halloween, over 30 guns alone that weekend. I'm convinced getting the guns off the street. And so public safety and working with NOPD and all the additional support and resources that I have not only pushed for, but really getting it off the ground and in partnership with the business community, we're moving in the right direction, but we still have to make sure that it remains the top priority. Of course, making sure that we continue to focus on our infrastructure and improving it. Definitely in terms of economic development and growth. I mentioned New Orleans being one of the top 10 fastest growing cities identified in the country. That's good news for us. We need to stay on that path and trajectory based on the budget, priorities, and the funding that we're recommending for passage. It nicely sets up public safety in terms of future investment, infrastructure, future investment, economic development and growth, cleaning up the city, focusing on our core, meaning our center, downtown. I believe that is going to be the real center point for making sure that this city not only moves in the right direction, but continues to grow our economy, continues to grow our general fund, continues to bolster, our financial stability. That's my hope. And we're moving in that direction. So there's so much reason not only to be hopeful for, but also to be grateful. We're in a great place, in a great position, and it's because of how we've led, being great fiscally responsible, good stewards, great fund balance, healthy budget as we're moving in, looking at 23. Definitely not all the way back yet. We're being very conservative, but also making sure that we're being smart about it. But looking at 23 and 24 and 25 when we're be at our healthiest, but we're moving in the right direction. So there's good reason to be happy and to be hopeful.
Last question, Ramasan.
Mayor, recall organizers take a different view. They believe they're on track to getting the signatures they need by the February deadline.
Okay.
What do you think about their effort at this point, and accusations that you have threatened retaliation against any city employees who might sign the recall petition?
Oh, no. First of all, retaliation, that's not who I am. I don't do that. I believe in democracy. I do, 100%. And that's how I look at recall. That's how I look at it. And so while they're focused, on their agenda, I'm focused on mine, and that is leading this city, making sure that we come out of COVID-19 the best that we've ever been in terms of our position financially, as well as public safety, in terms of infrastructure, all of those priorities lifted up. And I have results, my team and I have results that are aligned with our priorities. And we're going to continue to stay focused and continue to do the work that I was elected to do, and twice, and so I'm going to do my job. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you so much. Good seeing you.
You too.